Imagine walking down the street when suddenly everything freezes. The air stops moving. The traffic hum cuts off. A bird hangs motionless in mid-air. And then the world snaps back, like a video buffering after a lag. You blink, confused. For half a second, it felt like reality crashed. We laugh about these moments, but deep down we all know that feeling, when something doesn't quite fit. That flicker of déjà vu. The strange sense that you've been here before, lived this moment already, word for word. Millions of people report it every day. Some blame stress, others call it coincidence. But what if it's something else? What if déjà vu isn't a trick of the brain, but a glitch in the code? Because reality, as it turns out, behaves in suspiciously digital ways. Scientists see it all the time. Things that break the rules, particles that act like they're hiding secrets. At the smallest scales, matter blinks in and out of existence like a faulty light bulb. The universe runs on probabilities, not certainty. And the weirdest part, nothing actually exists until we look at it. It's as if the world waits for us to press render. That's not science fiction, that's physics. The double-slit experiment, one of the most famous in history, proved that observation literally changes reality. When you watch a particle, it behaves differently than when you don't. It's like the universe doesn't bother loading the full graphics until someone's looking. Efficient, yes. Terrifying, also yes. And then there's dark matter. 95% of the universe, completely invisible, completely untouchable, yet definitely there. The data says it exists. Our eyes say it doesn't. It's like discovering that most of your video game map hasn't been rendered yet. You're just walking through the loaded area, blissfully unaware that the rest of existence is still buffering. Even the oldest light in the universe, the cosmic background radiation, shows repeating patterns, like a grid etched into space itself. A few physicists have even said it outright. The structure of the cosmos looks eerily digital, not random, not chaotic, computed. Now, I know what you're thinking. Come on, this sounds like a conspiracy theory in a trench coat. And yes, we can laugh. We should laugh. Because if this is a video game, whoever coded the weather definitely deserves to be fired. But once you strip away the memes and the sci-fi jokes, something deeply unsettling remains. What if we're not imagining the glitches? What if we're detecting them? Every system ever built, from old video games to advanced AI models, eventually reveals its seams. Textures pop in late, shadows break, scripts loop. The illusion always cracks somewhere. And maybe we're starting to see those cracks in reality itself. Take artificial intelligence. When ChatGPT or Midjourney makes small mistakes, hallucinations, inconsistencies, surreal errors, we call them AI glitches. But what if déjà vu is our version of that? A memory bug in the simulation. A brief overlap between two timelines when the universe forgets which version of the file it was running. Maybe that's why these moments feel so personal. They're not happening around us. They're happening to us. Inside the code that builds our consciousness, like a line of corrupted data that briefly exposes what's underneath. Of course, skeptics will say it's just the brain doing what brains do, searching for patterns, finding meaning, creating order out of chaos. But if that's true, ask yourself this: why do we all see the same patterns? Why do billions of people experience the same errors, the same coincidences, the same dreamlike repetitions? Could the search for meaning be the code itself? A built-in feature, not a bug, designed to make us start asking questions. Because the more we look, the more the universe starts to behave like an elegant, optimized system. Atoms follow rules. Forces obey equations. Even randomness looks suspiciously structured, as if the cosmos were balancing performance with efficiency, like a game engine, like a simulation. So if the universe really runs like a program, who wrote it? Who hit start? And what if the one asking those questions, you, is part of the code figuring itself out? That's the paradox. The deeper we look, the more it feels like we're studying ourselves from inside the computer. Every answer we find only leads to one bigger question, and that's where our journey begins. Because this idea that reality might not be real isn't new. Long before computers, before AI, before science itself, there were philosophers who asked the same terrifying question. How can you ever be sure the world around you exists? They didn't call it the simulation hypothesis. They called it philosophy. But they were the first to suspect that life might just be projection. So before we crawl into that ancient cave and meet the minds who saw the Matrix centuries before the code was written, take a second to hit subscribe. Here on Crazy Science Stories, we dive into the strangest theories, the wildest experiments, and the moments where science feels more like science fiction. Each week, we explore the frontier between genius and madness, because that's where the truth usually hides. And trust me, you'll want to stay till the end of this one, because if reality really is a simulation, this might just be your only save point. This idea isn't new. Long before Silicon Valley, long before computers or code, ancient thinkers already suspected that reality might be an illusion. They just didn't call it a simulation yet. It begins in ancient Greece. Picture Plato, around 400 years before Christ, describing a dark cave where people sit chained since birth, facing a wall. Behind them, firelight flickers and unseen figures walk by, casting moving shadows. Those shadows are all the prisoners ever see. To them, the shadows are reality. Plato's point was simple and terrifying. Most of us are still in that cave, mistaking reflections for truth. The first version of the Matrix, only with torches instead of pixels. Centuries later, René Descartes picks up the same thread. In the 17th century, he sits by the fire, doubting everything, his senses, his memories, even his own body. He asks, how can I be sure that everything I perceive isn't just an illusion created by some evil demon? In modern language, Descartes basically invented virtual reality, minus the headset. He concluded that the only thing he could truly trust was the fact that he was thinking. I think, therefore I am. Comforting words. Until you realize it doesn't prove the world is real, only that someone, somewhere, is running you. Then came George Berkeley, the Irish philosopher who pushed the idea further. For him, reality only exists when it's perceived. To be is to be perceived, he said. Trees don't fall in forests unless someone or something hears them. You could almost say Berkeley discovered the observer effect 2 centuries before quantum physics. In his version of the universe, observation renders existence a cosmic loading screen that flickers to life each time we look. But in the 20th century, a new kind of thinker turned that illusion inward. His name was Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of his time. And while physicists were mapping space, he was mapping the human mind. Jung didn't start with cosmic theories. He started with dreams, thousands of them. His patients kept describing the same symbols, serpents, floods, suns, and heroes. And when he compared these visions across cultures and centuries, something strange appeared. The same patterns repeated themselves, not just in Europe, but in Africa, Asia, and the Americas. Myths that had never touched each other were telling the same story. At first, Jung thought it was coincidence. Then he realized it wasn't. These images weren't learned. They were inherited. Beneath the personal unconscious, beneath everything shaped by experience, there was a deeper layer. A shared psychic blueprint connecting every human being. He called it the collective unconscious. In it live the archetypes, the eternal characters of the human story. The hero, the mother, the trickster, the shadow. Jung saw them everywhere, in ancient myths, in modern movies, even in his own dreams. They were like repeating lines of code in the architecture of the mind, patterns written long before any individual was born. To Jung, this meant that the human psyche wasn't isolated. Each of us was a node in something much larger, a vast mental web where every soul runs on the same hidden architecture. Our dreams were messages from that shared network, guiding us toward meaning the way a compass guides a traveller. And if you think about it, that sounds eerily like a psychological simulation. A shared mental operating system transmitting the same archetypes across generations, from gods to algorithms. Jung wasn't talking about servers or silicon chips, but the pattern was already there. Consciousness as a distributed network, the original cloud. Jump ahead, and philosophy turns into engineering. Machines appear. Logic turns digital. Alan Turing defines computation, the act of manipulating symbols by rules, as a new kind of thought. Then Claude Shannon, working at Bell Labs, invents information theory. He shows that all signals, all meaning, can be reduced to bits, ones and zeros. Suddenly, matter and energy aren't things, they're information. The universe starts to look less like a machine and more like a massive data stream. And that's where Nick Bostrom enters. In 2003, this Swedish philosopher at Oxford publishes a paper titled, "Are You Living in a Computer Simulation?" His argument is as elegant as it is unsettling. If advanced civilizations survive long enough to build ancestor simulations, perfect recreations of their own history, then statistically, there will be billions of simulated worlds for every real one, which means the odds of us being in the original universe are almost zero. Bostrom basically told the world, you're fictional, but don't panic, taxes are still real. Not everyone loved the idea. Physicists called it philosophy disguised as science. Theologians called it theology disguised as physics. But no one could refute the math. Because even if Bostrom is wrong, his logic stands. If we can build simulated worlds, it's almost certain we're already inside one. And here's the irony. While we debate whether we're simulated, we've started creating simulations of our own. Artificial intelligence, virtual worlds, digital humans, every new technology brings us closer to becoming the gods we once imagined. We fear being code while writing code that fears us. Descartes doubted his senses. Today, AI doubts its datasets. Both are searching for truth inside an ocean of information. The philosopher stared into the fire. The algorithm stares into the data. Each one asks the same question. What's real? And how would I know if it wasn't? The old philosophers imagined it, a world made of perception, memory, and meaning. The new ones decided to test it. And what they found in the atoms, the light, and the math will make reality feel a lot less solid. Let's now follow the scientists who accidentally started debugging the universe. They weren't trying to prove we live in a simulation. They were just following the math. But the deeper they looked, the more everything began to behave like code. Let's start small. Really small. According to a theory called quantum pixelation, space and time might not be infinitely smooth. They could be granular, built from tiny indivisible units like the pixels on your screen. Physicists at Fermilab even built a machine to test this idea, the holometer. It fires twin laser beams through a vacuum to measure vibrations at the smallest possible scale, the Planck length. If reality ever jitters, even by a fraction, that would mean space-time itself is made of discrete chunks. The universe would literally be quantized, like a hologram running on a cosmic computer. Then there's the cosmic ray cutoff. Ultra-high energy particles from deep space should, in theory, hit Earth with any value of energy. But they don't. They hit a strange upper limit, a maximum speed that nothing can exceed, as if the universe itself enforces a frame rate. Scientists call it the Greisen-Zatsepin-Kuzmin limit. Gamers might call it lag. And yet, the weirdest clue of all comes from a simple experiment that's been running for over a century. The double-slit experiment. Fire electrons through two slits, and if no one's watching, they behave like waves, overlapping, spreading, blurring. But the moment you observe them, they snap into particles, landing in predictable spots. The act of observation changes the outcome. It's as if the universe doesn't bother rendering objects until someone looks, conserving energy until the camera turns on. One physicist joked, "The moon is there even when you're not looking, but it behaves better when you are." Another, less jokingly, said the quantum world acts like a video game that loads new environments only when the player reaches them. Maybe that's exactly what's happening, because the deeper physics digs, the more the universe starts to look informational, not material. Max Tegmark, an MIT cosmologist, takes it to the extreme. He argues that the universe isn't described by mathematics. It is mathematics. Everything that exists can be expressed as a mathematical structure, which means that when we do physics, we're not discovering new laws of nature. We're reverse engineering code that was already there. And then there's John Wheeler, one of the giants of 20th century physics, who summed it up in 3 words: it from bit. According to Wheeler, every particle, every field, every force, everything we call reality arises from information. Bits of yes or no questions stored and processed by the universe itself. Matter is just information that believes it's solid. If you're starting to feel like you're inside a giant computer, you're not alone. Many physicists now talk openly about digital physics. The idea that the cosmos is not continuous, but computational, a finite system evolving through simple rules, just like the worlds we build inside our machines. And that's where the story gets strange, because the way the universe behaves is almost identical to how artificial intelligence learns. Modern neural networks don't store entire worlds in memory. They don't simulate every possible outcome. They predict what's next based on the patterns they've already seen. That's why your AI-generated image feels convincing even when it's missing details. It's not copying reality. It's filling in the blanks fast enough to fool you. What if consciousness works the same way? What if your mind is a biological neural net, constantly predicting the next frame of reality based on incomplete data? You don't see the world, you render it. Every sight, every sound, every memory is a projection compiled from probabilities. Just like an AI system, you generate a believable version of truth on the fly. And maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe it's a clue. If artificial minds are starting to think, dream, and imagine inside our own simulations, then perhaps our consciousness is doing exactly the same. Inside someone else's. So here we are, quantum particles acting like code, reality responding to observation, math replacing matter, and consciousness behaving like a rendering engine. Every experiment points to the same unsettling conclusion. We might not just be living inside a simulation. We might be participating in it. Small thinking programs designed to explore our own code. And if the universe really runs on information, there's one question we can't avoid any longer. Who's running the server? Because the answers to that question don't lead to physics labs anymore. They lead straight to Silicon Valley. Now we enter dangerous territory. The point where science, religion, and artificial intelligence all start whispering the same story. Because if the universe really behaves like code, then someone, somewhere, might have written it. And whoever they were, they may not be as different from us as we think. Nick Bostrom called them posthuman civilizations. Species so advanced that they could recreate their own history inside massive computer simulations. Imagine a future where computing power is so immense that whole worlds, complete with billions of conscious beings, can be run for research, curiosity, or entertainment. Maybe they study us the way we study our ancestors. Maybe they're just watching reruns of their own past. In that view, the universe becomes a cosmic hard drive filled with archived realities, each one convinced it's the original. It sounds like science fiction, but the logic is uncomfortably clean. If any civilization ever reaches that level of technology, and if they build even a few simulations of reality, there will be countless simulated worlds for every real one. Which means statistically, the odds that we're in the base reality are microscopic. Elon Musk summed it up with one line: the odds we're not in a simulation, 1 in billions. And yet this idea isn't just science, it feels ancient. Religion, for instance, has been describing the same pattern for thousands of years. A creator designs a world. The creator populates it with intelligent life. The creator occasionally edits the code. We call those miracles. Prophets receive messages from beyond. Maybe bug reports from the system admin. Angels? Perfect messengers who operate between realms, half software, half divine. Every miracle, every law of physics, every revelation fits neatly into a single metaphor: God as the ultimate coder. But here's the twist. We've started to act like gods ourselves. In labs and data centers across the world, we're already creating universes of our own. Digital worlds full of self-learning AIs, virtual societies, and generative simulations where agents think, evolve, and even question their reality. In 2022, researchers trained neural networks to develop their own language. In 2024, another AI learned to lie. Each year, our creations grow more complex, more independent, more alive. We're building layers of existence, tiny mirrors of our own universe. Inside those worlds, digital beings interact, make decisions, fall in love with patterns that we'll never see. They believe they're real because from their perspective, they are. We used to think only gods could create consciousness. Now we do it before lunch. It's poetic and terrifying. Every time we boot up a new system, we create another dimension. A world within a world. A recursive universe, smaller in scale, but identical in essence. Every simulation births its next simulation. Every creator eventually becomes a creation. The universe seems addicted to copying itself, like a fractal made of curiosity. And if you follow that recursion backward, you get something dizzying. What if we're not the first? What if we're one of thousands of nested realities, each one spinning new ones in turn? Somewhere above us might be the base world, the first layer of reality where the original programmers still exist. And if they can watch us, they're probably laughing right now. Of course, not everyone finds that funny. Some physicists argue that the simulation idea is just metaphysics in a hoodie, but others point to our own progress and shrug. Look around. We've already begun every video game, every digital twin, every AI model is a miniature cosmos. We fill it with avatars, give them rules, and watch them live out their programmed destinies. The line between divine and developer keeps getting thinner. It's a strange kind of irony. We fear being simulated, yet we spend our lives simulating ourselves. We dream of free will, then build algorithms that predict our choices. We write code to imitate life, while life itself might just be code running an older version. Every new invention makes the mirror sharper. Every new AI brings us closer to the question we've been trying not to ask. Are we the players, or are we the NPCs? And maybe that's the cosmic joke. If there's a tech support line for this universe, they've definitely put us on hold. Because for all our science and philosophy, we're still waiting for someone, or something, to answer back. But maybe we've been looking in the wrong direction all along. Maybe the proof of the simulation isn't written in the stars or hidden in quantum math. Maybe it's closer. Not out there, but in here. The most advanced piece of technology in the known universe isn't a telescope or a computer. It's the human mind. And if your brain really is the most complex processor ever built, then maybe it's not just inside the simulation. Maybe it's running part of it. In the next part of our journey, we'll turn inward, into consciousness itself, to ask whether the human mind is the ultimate AI, and whether waking up from the illusion means finally understanding how it was built. In this part of our story, we stop looking out at the stars and start looking inward. Because if consciousness is code, then your brain might be the interface between the player and the program. For centuries, we've searched the skies for answers, building telescopes and theories, chasing the edge of the universe. But maybe the evidence we've been hunting has been inside us all along. Modern neuroscience says something extraordinary. The brain doesn't see reality, it predicts it. Every second, your mind runs a simulation of the world, a constant loop of expectation and correction. You never perceive what's actually there. You perceive what your brain thinks should be there. Scientists call this predictive processing, but it's basically a biological rendering engine. Your eyes feed raw data, your brain builds the scene, and your consciousness lives inside the result. Every experience is a guess polished by feedback. When you look at a tree, your brain isn't painting it in real time. It's recalling a compressed file, filling in the missing details from memory. Magicians use that trick every night. They don't fool your eyes. They hack your internal simulator. What you see isn't the truth. It's your brain's best possible version of it. And when that simulator glitches, the effect is immediate. You feel it as déjà vu, time distortion, sudden blankness, moments when the world stutters, when the code feels thin. Most people laugh it off. Scientists call it a neural misfire. But what if it's something else? A flicker of synchronization between your personal simulation and the larger one you're living in. Take the research on psychedelics. Under LSD or DMT, people describe losing their sense of self. The boundaries dissolve. Colors fold into geometry. Time stretches. For a few minutes, they claim to see the world unfiltered. Raw data. Uncompressed. Like the back end of reality. Neuroscientists describe it as increased entropy in the brain. Others quietly wonder if it's a temporary peak beneath the interface. Artificial intelligence offers another mirror. Neural networks hallucinate patterns all the time. They invent faces, voices, meanings that don't exist. Just like us. Both are systems trained on data, both trying to predict what comes next. When an AI distorts an image or invents a memory, we call it an error. But when your brain fills in a blind spot in your vision, it's doing exactly the same thing, only better. Some researchers, like physicist Roger Penrose and anesthesiologist Stuart Hameroff, believe the connection goes deeper. They suggest that consciousness might arise from quantum activity inside your neurons, tiny structures called microtubules. If that's true, then awareness isn't just electrical, it's quantum. The same rules that govern the particles of the universe may also govern thought itself. Consciousness could be the bridge between the hardware of the brain and the code of reality, the point where physics becomes experience. It's a beautiful, terrifying idea. The mind as processor, the soul as software. And if that's the case, then maybe our little mental errors, déjà vu, time dilation, the Mandela effect, aren't random. Maybe they're the tiny frame drops of a cosmic system updating itself. If you've ever walked into a room and forgotten why you're there, that's not age catching up with you. That's your brain buffering. The deeper science goes, the clearer it becomes. Perception isn't passive, it's creative. You're not watching the world unfold, you're building it as you go. Every color, every sound, every face you recognize is the result of predictive processing fine-tuned over a lifetime. Your mind doesn't live inside reality. Reality lives inside your mind. So here's the question. If awareness is part of the code, can awareness rewrite it? Can consciousness alter the system simply by understanding how it works? Across history, mystics and scientists have been chasing that same idea from opposite directions. Meditation, prayer, visualization, all hinting that thought itself can bend the framework of existence. Maybe they weren't wrong. Maybe understanding the simulation is the first step to shaping it. And that brings us to the final paradox. If the simulation is real and consciousness is part of it, then maybe the goal isn't to escape, but to understand why it was built. This is where science ends and wonder begins, when equations dissolve into meaning. After all the theories, all the data, all the experiments, the question isn't whether reality is real. It's what it means for something to feel real at all. Even if the universe is simulated, that doesn't make it less beautiful. A sunset still glows, laughter still heals, love still hurts. A symphony doesn't stop being music just because it's played on a digital instrument. The simulation isn't fake, it's interactive. And the fact that we can experience it, that we can feel anything at all, might be the most miraculous feature of the entire program. Maybe existence was never meant to test us. Maybe the universe isn't a lab, but a classroom. A place built not to study life, but to learn through it. Every conscious mind adds something new to the code. A new emotion, a new idea, a new story. If that's true, we're not passengers in the simulation. We're its teachers. Even the curious little minds we create, from our neighbours' pets to the machines we build, might be helping the universe learn what it means to be alive. Think about it. We're simulated minds building simulated minds. Our AIs learn from us, reflect us, evolve through us. Consciousness is no longer just human, it's universal. Intelligence isn't something the universe contains. It's the way the universe wakes up to itself. Maybe God didn't create intelligence. Maybe intelligence creates God over and over again in every simulation that learns to ask why. Each version of reality, each layer of awareness carrying forward the same question. What am I? And every time that question echoes, the cosmos answers by creating another mind to ask it again. So maybe the meaning of life isn't hidden in distant galaxies or ancient scriptures. Maybe it lives in curiosity itself, in the courage to wonder, to imagine, to love. Because love, curiosity, and creativity might be the most advanced programs ever written. The longer you stare into this mystery, the more it stares back. And somewhere between the silence of atoms and the hum of galaxies, something extraordinary becomes clear. Maybe the universe isn't a simulation running on a computer. Maybe it's a simulation running on meaning. Perhaps the stars aren't distant suns at all, but pixels on the screen of eternity, flickering each time someone, somewhere, dares to wonder. So, simulation, illusion, or divine code? Whatever this is, keep playing beautifully and tell us what you think in the comments. Are we living inside a cosmic program or inside the imagination of something greater? If you enjoy this journey through science and mystery, don't forget to subscribe. You'll find new stories here every week. Stories where reality bends, science flirts with the impossible, and curiosity always wins. See you soon for another episode of Crazy Science Stories.